Without guidance, a nation falls, but with many advisors, there is safety. This is the message first written in the Torah in Proverbs 11:14, but in the past century, it has taken on a different meaning. Today, this verse has become the motto of the Mossad, Israel's secret intelligence agency. And just like the Mossad itself, this motto is at the center of Israel's long-term efforts to ensure its own safety. So, in today's video, the second in our series about special operatives that will continue if people like it, we will discuss the unique mission and situation of the Mossad, the organization's shadowy history, and some of the major operations, whether successes or failures, that have shaped their place in public awareness. But before we begin, if you're new to our channel, make sure to subscribe so you'll always be updated with videos like this. History Mossad was established after the Second World War, shortly after the first election of the modern State of Israel and its acceptance into the United Nations. The Mossad succeeded an organization called Haganah, a military force composed of Jews in Palestine that defended Jewish communities before and during the Second World War. After the war, the Haganah emerged. They shifted to terrorism, especially through a series of bombings to fight against British efforts to limit Jewish immigration to Palestine. Their success in this, as well as their effectiveness in direct combat against British and Palestinian forces, gave the Haganah significant influence over national defense decisions of what would become the State of Israel. Because of this, the Haganah was dissolved, and some of its parts were integrated into what would become the Military of Israel, the Israeli Defense Forces, or IDF. In this way, the intelligence branch of the Haganah became Mossad along with two other organizations, Amman and Shin Bet. Just like in America, where the FBI handles local matters while the CIA deals with foreign intelligence, Mossad was established to focus on gathering and analyzing foreign intelligence, as well as conducting covert operations. Amman would be responsible for Israel's military intelligence, while Shin Bet handles internal security within the country. The intelligence environment that Mossad entered was very complicated and rapidly changing. The United States and Europe were focused on the Cold War against the Soviet Union and its allies, while the situation in the Middle East and Asia was also changing rapidly. In addition, there was the ongoing threat of Nazi war criminals fleeing to Latin America, fascist Spain, and the United States. To make matters worse, this would be a difficult environment for any new intelligence agency trying to establish itself. But because the Mossad was founded while the entire nation of Israel was doing the same thing, their work became even more challenging. Under the Mossad's first director, Reuben Schiller, most of the organization's first year was spent fighting bureaucratic battles. It also experienced early failure in the Middle East when a poorly organized spy operation in Baghdad was discovered while trying to address a series of bombings against Jewish targets in Iraq. But it wasn't long before the Mossad's second director would truly shape the organization. His name was Iser Harel, and he had long been working on establishing and strengthening Israel's Shin Bet organization, which was responsible for domestic intelligence within the country. During his 11 years of leadership, Harel transformed the Mossad from a wartime resistance network into a highly efficient and extremely dangerous global intelligence operation, aided by intelligence geniuses like Mark Braverman. Harel managed the development of a close relationship between the Mossad and the CIA and integrated the Mossad into CIA operations against the Soviet Union. It also connected regional intelligence networks in the Middle East, including the Trident Network, which allied the Mossad with pre-revolutionary Iran and Turkey. Harel was also controversial within Israel, especially because of his tendency to gather political dirt against various opponents, which forced him to resign in 1963, and he was replaced by a veteran military intelligence officer. While Harel focused on human intelligence, his successor, Meir Amit, developed the Mossad in a different way. He used technology, installed computers, and expanded connections with other foreign intelligence agents. Simply put, he implemented various intelligence management techniques learned from the US. But importantly, Amit also maintained an emphasis on human intelligence, often personally visiting foreign intelligence chiefs. Under his leadership, Mossad expanded its arsenal for espionage, not only technologically, but also by incorporating many aspects of spycraft that were previously lacking. Modus operandi and structure. Under its various directors and administrators, Mossad became known as a powerful player in the region and in global affairs. We will discuss some of the agency's most well-known operations later, but overall, it's important to look at some tactics and methods that Mossad often uses. Unfortunately, we can't go into much detail about the history after the 1980s, because the agency is so secretive and most of their work will never be published. But based on what we know, Mossad has unique characteristics compared to other global intelligence agencies. Aside from gathering intel, developing assets, and generally operating in secrecy like others do, Mossad has shown a unique interest in assassination. It's hard to name any international intelligence organization that hasn't been linked to or accused of secret assassinations from time to time. But Mossad is particularly known for this, especially against targets in the Middle East. In many ways, this reflects the unique demands of Mossad's mission. Unlike the intelligence agencies of the US, UK, Russia, or China, Israel is geographically confined to a small territory surrounded by countries that can quickly become enemies. Such a small territory means that a prolonged war against an enemy country or insurgency can quickly become unsustainable due to the lack of space to retreat or escape from enemy air power. Because of this, the country has long followed the principle of active defense. This includes maintaining a large and well-armed military, the IDF, and the threat of unacknowledged nuclear weapons, and most importantly, an intelligence agency, and with the capability to carry out preemptive strikes against individuals believed to pose a threat to national security. Investigative journalist Ronan Bergman described Mossad's assassination protocols as a multi-step process to assess the threat level of the target and determine if that profile warrants such an action. Potential targets are identified either through Mossad's internal intelligence or from referrals by allied governments. And just like Shin Bet, Amman, or Israel's spy networks around the world, once identified, it's up to Mossad agents to assess whether the target's threat profile warrants elimination, if it will benefit Israel, and how the operation should be carried out. In practice, Mossad has almost unilateral power to decide which of Israel's enemies become targets for assassination. This organization reports directly to the Prime Minister of Israel and presents its findings and those of the IDF directly to him. Although they also receive input from the heads of other Israeli intelligence bureaus, the decision to carry out an assassination or any foreign intelligence operation rests solely with the Prime Minister. When the Prime Minister gives the go signal, Mossad plans the assassination weeks or months before it is actually carried out. Their target could be anyone from political leaders, scientists, or academics. Journalists, Arabs, Westerners, Jews, and also many Palestinians in the Middle East. The operational branch of Mossad is called Caesarea, which mainly operates in Arab countries using a wide network of spies, informants, and cooperating assets. Within this branch, there is a special unit for assassinations and sabotage called Kaidon, from the Hebrew word for bayonet. Like other global intelligence agencies, most of Kaidon is composed of veteran Israeli soldiers, including experts in special operations. Caesarea and Kaidon are similar to counterpart organizations such as the CIA's Special Activities Center, a name that doesn't sound bad, but for the actual operation, it is extremely dangerous. Mossad's record in targeted assassination attempts has reached thousands, even higher than any Western nation. Since the end of the Second World War, Mossad is divided into several departments, collections, handling most of the covert operations and undercover missions, including asset cultivation. It also has the largest Mossad workforce in the world, and oversees the geographical regions and teams of Mossad officers and agents. Political action and liaison, responsible for cooperating with international intelligence partners and maintaining lines of communication with countries that have no formal ties with Israel. Research gathers and provides analysis of intelligence coming from 15 geographical areas. In addition, there is a subdivision that deals with weapons of mass destruction, and the technology department is responsible for all the gadgets, satellites, and other equipment that Mossad needs to be effective in its operations. The Special Operations Division, including Qaeda and another subgroup called Mossad, carries out assassinations, sabotage, and paramilitary operations. Meanwhile, the LAP department, or Lahama Psychology Department, is in charge of psychological warfare operations and propaganda. Equally important are the external agencies and partner groups of Mossad that use their deep connections with the Jewish community inside and outside Israel to strengthen Mossad's potential as an intelligence leader. For example, Libertad Adventures, a venture capital group, was established by Mossad in 2017 and is now open to startups that can submit their technology for possible use by the agency. On the human side, there are the Sayanim, a vast network of unpaid Jewish civilians around the world who provide personal support to Mossad because of their loyalty to Israel, even though they are not Israeli citizens. Their role is to provide logistical support to Mossad operatives whenever possible. For example, a person who owns a grocery store or warehouse can make sure that an undercover Mossad agent in a safe house always has enough food without having to go out in public. The Sayanim are multi-generational and widespread throughout the world. Although this is greatly exaggerated in various anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, each individual helper can be a big help to Mossad operations while keeping costs down. Mossad's partners include the United States, the UK, and most of Europe, with a breakdown of friends and enemies that usually follows Israel's geopolitical profile. In the Middle East, Mossad often has deeper connections with other governments. In a region where an overnight coup in one country can trigger a revolution in another, a war in another, and a human rights emergency in yet another, Mossad has established strong connections even with adversarial governments to keep options open for de-escalating tensions and to prevent an all-out war involving Israel. Recruitment and training is simpler than many people think. You just need to visit the Mossad website and fill out the online application. This path often leads applicants to roles related to technology, cyber operations, or organizational administration. In understanding the recruitment structure of Mossad, it's important to know the significance of the Israeli Defense Forces, which mandates that every Israeli citizen who is Jewish or of Jewish descent must serve for at least 2 years and 8 months. Mandatory conscription makes the IDF a vital feeder organization for a large part of Israeli society, serving as a way to select the best in various fields, and the same applies to Mossad. As we mentioned earlier, a successful special operations soldier can be recruited into Qaeda to participate in assassination and sabotage operations. Meanwhile, a promising intelligence officer in the IDF can become a handler, or a soldier who has learned to operate drones and satellites in the IDF can also do the same job for Mossad in the future. Historically, Mossad's recruitment methods have been more personal. They prefer referrals for new personnel, relying on their existing staff to recommend friends, family, and other trusted associates. Occasionally, Mossad also puts out vague ads in newspaper classifieds or directly contacts Israelis with security clearance in the IDF. Walk-ins at Israeli embassies have also happened, but these have become much rarer since the arrival of video cameras, which added risk to this method, especially in potentially hostile environments. Once a recruit is accepted into Mossad, they have to undergo training for their new role. Although much of Mossad's training regimen is not known to the public, what we do know reveals a rigorous process that likely has a high failure rate. After establishing their candidacy, the recruit must undergo various tests and in-depth psychological analysis, including thorough questioning about every aspect of their personal life. After this, they enter a pre-screening program with high-stress exercises and simulations where they are deliberately not told whether they are succeeding or not, and the instructors intentionally make things difficult or make them feel insecure throughout the program. The recruits who can handle the fear and anxiety of intelligence work, who demonstrate quick thinking, strong interpersonal skills, and integrity, as well as the ability to cope with the solitary nature of Mossad agents' work, are transferred to the proper training program. Those who can't handle it are sent home. We can't say everything for sure because we know very little about Mossad's training program, and even less about the specific instructions for a particular role in the agency. But if the pre-screening process is intentionally designed to make recruits fail and produce a high attrition rate, then the actual training is probably even more grueling. Now, when it comes to famous operations, if we try to discuss every Mossad operation that we know of, it would take us the whole day, and that's just a small portion of the operations that have become public. But we can look at some of Mossad's biggest successes and failures to get an idea of what their style of operation is like. Of all Mossad's secret missions, none is as well known as the capture of Adolf Eichmann, a Nazi who was one of the main architects of the Holocaust, along with Reinhard Heydrich. After Eichmann escaped from a detention camp and fled through the Nazi rat lines to Latin America, a group of Holocaust survivors and private Nazi hunters searched for him to bring him to justice with the help of Mossad. Like other Cyanium, these Nazi hunters became instrumental in Mossad operations. When they found a lead that pointed to Buenos Aires, Argentina, a Mossad team under Malcolm Braverman continued the operation. After several weeks of investigation, surveillance, and attempts to contact the German government for extradition, in the end, Eichmann was captured by Mossad themselves. He was interrogated for several days in a safe house in Argentina. One of Mossad's main objectives was to identify Dr. Joseph Mengele. Afterwards, he was deliberately taken back to Israel on a commercial airline, disguised as a sick patient. When Israel announced the operation, Argentina, the United Nations, the CIA, and other interested parties around the world were surprised. But this did not become a hindrance. In the end, Eichmann was found guilty of 15 counts of crimes against humanity and other major violations, and he was executed. But the Mossad rarely wants the world to know about their assassination attempts. Usually, the truth comes out. For example, let's look at the case of Palestinian Fadi al-Bak, a member of the nationalist military group Hamas. In 2018, he was killed on the streets of Kuala Lumpur by two men on a motorcycle who shot him and disappeared into the city. Although Israel clearly denied any involvement, allegations emerged that al-Bak was working to improve the accuracy of rockets launched by Hamas against Israeli targets. Motorbike attacks became known as a hallmark of Mossad's assassination teams, even though the Mossad would obviously say otherwise. A different assassination attempt made headlines for another reason. In 1997, Mossad agents tried to assassinate a Hamas representative named Khaled Mashal while disguised as Canadian tourists. The agents injected the toxin into Mashal's body into his ear while he was in Jordan, causing a medical emergency, but they were quickly caught by the Jordanian authorities, and some were trapped in the Israeli embassy, causing a hostage crisis. In the end, the Jordanian government was forced to reach an agreement with Israel. A doctor was sent and administered the antidote to Mashal in exchange for the freedom of the Mossad agents. The fallout from this incident led to several hits against Mossad and Israel itself, including the release of Hamas founder Sheikh Ahmed Yassin in another operation that was perhaps even less successful than the incident with Mashal. A group of no less than 26 Mossad agents are believed to have been involved in the killing of Mahmoud al-Mabhouh, a military commander of Hamas, in 2010. He was suffocated in a hotel room in Dubai. Although there is no direct evidence linking Mossad to the incident, it is believed that al-Mabhouh was tortured and interrogated by a team of agents before he was killed. Information about the suspected agents and their international passports was later published. In 1954, a bungled operation revealed the early tactics of Mossad. They tried to stop Alexander Israel, an Israeli military officer, from selling state secrets to Egypt through a female Mossad agent in what was called a honey trap operation. Major Israel fell into the trap and was abducted. But on the way back to Israel, he overdosed on repeated doses of sedatives. The incident was kept from the public for many decades. Despite some mistakes, there are Mossad agents who stand out because of their courage and intelligence in operations. For example, Afghan Lotz, a West German working for Mossad, was able to infiltrate Egypt and gather detailed information about missile strikes, military installations, and prominent German rocket scientists. Eli Cohen infiltrated the highest levels of the Syrian government in the 1960s. He almost became the Minister of Defense in Syria while working for Mossad, and he provided an enormous amount of intelligence before he was executed in 1965. There is no doubt that there were hundreds, if not thousands, of other agents who also made significant contributions. But Lotz and Cohen are among the few well-known names. It's important to remember these are only the operations that we know about, except for a few rare cases like the Eichmann trial. Usually the world only finds out about this kind of intelligence operation when they make a mistake. However, it's likely that Mossad's track record is longer and more successful than anything available to the public. And many of their biggest successes remain highly secret. And that's Mossad style. Present day and future. As the 2020s began, Mossad started to have a more active profile than in previous years. Although it still operates in the shadows, it's harder to hide the organization in the digital age. If it wants to maintain high recruitment and stay ahead of the constant flow of information about its operations, it needs to be more public than before. Even their online application portal and modern website are a clear contrast to their traditional mysterious image. As time goes by, it's likely that Mossad will be seen more in public while continuing to protect its operations, just like how the CIA does. In 2018, Mossad allowed some senior agents to participate in a documentary. But after the film was released, many complained, fearing that their secret work would be affected. Although it is unclear if their concerns were valid, this shows Mossad's high regard for security and secrecy. Despite this, Mossad operatives remain busy searching for and eliminating Israel's enemies. For example, in October 2022, Israel and several news organizations reported that Mossad tried to abduct 2 Palestinian computer scientists. One was captured, but the other escaped. The one who was captured was later released by Malaysian authorities, who claimed they had discovered a Mossad cell spying in their country. In Turkey, several suspected agents were identified last December, who allegedly monitored Palestinians within Turkish territory. Possibly in response to this, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu began releasing information about Mossad, including significant intelligence gathered against the Iranian nuclear program. Let's look to the future. Mossad stands with Israel at a difficult crossroads, where the future depends on the policies chosen by the Israeli government. At the time of this writing, Netanyahu and the far-right coalition seem to be taking steps to change the power structure of Israel, which will likely have an effect on Mossad. Likewise, the possible strengthening of ties with Saudi Arabia, the rising tensions with Iran due to its nuclear program, and the ever-complicated situation in the Middle East could all affect Mossad's operations. But what Mossad will do about this, we will never know. And if Mossad wants to, we will probably never know. After all, this is an organization that does not want to be recognized and is even less willing to show its inner workings to the world. Only one thing is certain. As Israel continues to face geopolitical challenges, Mossad will also continue to evolve. As long as Mossad exists, their agents will remain at the forefront of intelligence work around the world, and they will do everything they can to ensure the survival and success of the State of Israel in the coming decades and centuries.